Hello, hello. Once again, my name is Steve Jaguar.
And I'm Mike Foster, and welcome to a special edition of C9K. We have a bunch of big spenders, some CEO changes, and we're going to be talking CVSS scores today. Welcome.
Okay, the elephant in the room. Why are we doing this on Saturday?
Doing this on Saturday because I had one, Steve's very generous to move it, and I got in very early yesterday morning. I had a flight delay, and I just got rebooked on a 6:30 a.m. flight from Raleigh. So, yes, we were going through the show. Steve got everything prepared, and then, of course, delays. Seems to be the story of 2022.
Yeah.
A lot of delays.
True. Oh, well, that is airports for you. But yeah, this is it. We're doing it on our first Saturday ever, I think. First Saturday cloud native video newsletter for your impatient world. And anything exciting happening in your life before we get into the general news?
In my life, if you're in the Toronto area or anybody that watches in the Toronto area, there's going to be a CNCF meetup next Thursday. I'll be chatting about Stack Rocks a little bit. And it's actually kind of funny because the CNCF ambassador that I know is like, what does Stack Rocks use open source CNCF? Is there a tie-in? Because there was a little bit of, if he wants to let me talk or not. It's like, well, it's Falco libraries underneath the hood. It's Claire Scanner, right? Like there's a bunch of components. But yeah, I was kind of shocked. I'm like, is there like a requirement that you have to have a CNCF project to speak here? Is that new? It's just kind of like a self-enforced thing. I don't know.
It is kind of enforced, though. You ever try and get a gig at KubeCon? It's impossible unless you're talking about the actual landscape. The landscape's so frippin' huge. So
yeah, it was also kind of funny because we've heard complaints from people at CNCF like, oh, well, they have so many donated projects. It's like, yeah, well, if we want to be able to talk at your stuff, we're gonna have to donate to it. So anyway, it's this weird like catch-22 where
it's funny. It is funny. I've spoken at the Cloud Native London before, and I didn't talk about anything Cloud Native. They just wanted it to be open source, and it was fine. So it depends on the person, I suppose.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right.
That's what's going on in my life. What's up with
you? Next Wednesday at the London Olympia, which sounds posh, is the 5th birthday of DevSecOps London Gathering. So we're going to have cake and food and stuff. And we have a theater, like 200-person theater, which is going to be way too big because we've never even come close to having 200 people at our thing. But it'll look impressive. So if you're in the London area and you can get over to London Olympia, which is actually not super convenient because it's about like 15 minutes on the tube from Shoreditch where most of our people are. So hopefully, put some effort in. Come on, get there. And then the day after, I'm taking a train to Manchester to speak at AWS Community Summit in Manchester. And I'm going to be doing a talk where there's an article we're going to go through in our CVE section, which is exactly what my talk is, except somebody really did it. So I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to add this. So a little bit of foreshadowing there.
Very neat. Other than that, KubeCon coming up end of October. That's the only other thing. I'll be there. You will be there.
I'll be there doing the exact same talk at SecureCon, the one I'm doing in Manchester. So you can come to KubeCon and see me in Detroit.
Did you get your timing for the talk at Cloud Native Security Con?
I did, but I can't remember what it was.
So I'm bright and early Monday morning, 9:25.
Sorry, man. I'll be there.
At least I get it out of the way early.
Yeah. I'll buy a few beers the night before. Make sure it's a mess.
All right, let's get into the news.
Oh, okay. I just clicked clipboard. That's no good. Boom. Go blog, vulnerability management for Go. This sounds a little boring, but it's not, because of this line here. The surfacing vulnerabilities in functions that your code is actually calling. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, actually calling.
That's cool. So, as opposed to, people are used to vulnerabilities, tracking vuln go dev, etc., and SCA tools, I guess, that dig out these CVEs, etc., except this is combining actually intimate knowledge of your actual application with those vulnerabilities, which is like, this is like a unicorn. This is like what people have been asking for freaking ages.
Yep.
So yeah.
And cool. It helps a lot with all the downstream projects too, right? A lot of false flags and things like that in other tooling when they're trying to do code checking. So this will be extremely useful. And I feel like Go is, because it's not a runtime language, not like Python or something like that, where it's doing it, it's compiling at runtime. Yeah, it's compiled, so you get it a lot more accurate results, which is pretty cool.
It is interesting. It's like, well, I don't know. I want to see it. So that maybe is going to go on to our list of things. Like, all right, I want to see this get demonstrated in a way that I can see these are actually vulnerabilities I care about, and these are a whole bunch of ones that I've just been deprioritized because the code can never reach them. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. So I'm stoked. I want to see this in real life. All right, what do we got next? We have got. I'm just going to flick tabs.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
It's a pretty big announcement.
A new release from the Executive Office of the President. As you can see, I have an original copy here. September 14th. So did you read this whole thing? I saw somebody's highlights on LinkedIn.
Not the whole thing. It's a little long, but and obviously references 1,000 other different articles. But I did think that the attestation part was very interesting. It's in the first section there, talking about software producers' self-attestation serves as a conformance statement described by the NIST guidance, and the agency must obtain a self-attestation for all third-party software subject to the requirements of the memorandum.
Yeah,
let's
do this. Let's go here.
Okay, there you go.
In the appendix, if you're just I don't want to read it, then do what I did. Just go to skip to the end and see all the crap you got to do and when. And the attestations is here. There. All right. It's freaking impossible. That's just like my first
standard.
It's a tough standard. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of security companies, a lot of companies having a little panic, and a lot of security companies maybe cashing in on on helping people out with this, because it's tough. It's good though. I mean, it's wild though that they have jumped in with such a heavy requirement, but we'll see.
And I think that the timeline is flexible, but I do think that at least from watching politics over the last 5 years, you've seen a lot of announcements, and it's, oh, so-and-so is going to shut down the market to gas power cars by 2030 or something like that. I don't really think that they think that that's the day, but unless they put the pressure on private enterprise to do something, then they'll go, oh, well, we're going to get shut out in a year if we don't do this. Realistically, it's probably 2 or 3, but it gets people moving, and it kind of lights a fire under their butts, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison, actually. That there's like, well, there's a deadline. Like who? But just there.
Yeah.
Like,
And
can we do
that
it? I don't
I
know.
always think it's so funny. It's like that specific deadline, 365 days. What happens if there's a hack on the 364th? Or was it a failure?
Yeah, it's a
Like,
disaster, obviously.
yeah. I think it's just basically to say all of the things that have been in motion are going to remain in motion. After the SBOM guidance and all that came out was a year ago. I forget what the policy was. It kind of lines up with the 2 years that they wanted to have SBOMs and everything. So
Yep. It's wild. I think of this whole SBOM thing going nuts because it's like it was 4 years ago. At Synopsys, we had Black Duck, and no one gave a crap about SBOMs. And we were like, no, they're important. Nah, now they're important.
they're still flawed, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
you have an SBOM, but the SBOM is written terribly.
Oh yeah.
Why does it matter?
You can have a shitty SBOM, no doubt.
For sure.
Awesome. All right, let's shift into this one. I think this is a recent addition. I don't remember ever seeing this before in the Kubernetes docs. The security checklist, and they've even made it look like a checklist. Look, little tick boxes.
Yeah, very cool. I think it is part of a couple pieces of work. Typically, right before KubeCon, there's always CNCF specific announcements. So at Cloud Native Security Con, they're probably going to, say that PSPs are deprecated again, and then they're also going to say we have a checklist for you. We're doing these things as part of their speeches that they'll give at the keynotes. So I think it's partially that, right? It's another thing that they're adding on.
It's cool. Actually, I know it's interesting. It would be interesting for us. I haven't done this yet because we both have open source tools that do Kubernetes checks. Do we have all the checks that are here? I don't know. I haven't even really looked at that. And at a glance, yes, some of them, certainly, a lot of them, but I don't know. So maybe I have a feeling that's going to end up on my sprint on Monday.
Just looking at like the secrets, the pod placement, SE Linux, it's all that information is definitely gathered in StackRox. Whether or not you're enforcing on it as a default policy is different. Like we definitely don't have something where it's like, oh, SComp isn't enabled or SecComp isn't enabled, so shut down the pod, right? But
yeah,
if there's a profile associated with the application, it shows up and it lowers the security risk of the workload, right?
Yeah, definitely. Comping maps, like some of this stuff you can't check for. You don't know whether you've got comping maps storing confidential data. And this is just great advice. Pod placement is done in accordance with tiers of sensitivity in the application. Oh my goodness. Wouldn't it be wonderful if anybody did that?
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. Go check it out. Again, all the links are down below in the description on YouTube. So you can go find them, click them, read them, boom.
Yes, and if you're watching this on Saturday, which I see some people are, you probably got a notification. So if you want to get notifications, hit the little subscribe and follow button. Little alarm bell will tell you when we go live.
Alrighty. This next one I added because it's almost unreadable in its presentation, but it's freaking amazing. Some dude, theory of .predictable.software, right? I went to this guy's site and our firewall blocked it. So I had to go to the personal version of just to be able to look at it. Because I don't know why, I haven't figured it out. It's a little nasty, but it goes through CVSS version 3.1. It says in a nutshell, but then look, like that is long. But it talks about the fact that, all the scores aren't even achievable, like given the permutations. There's only 101 values to map, 2,593. He did all possible scores over degrees and, got a distribution graph that, actually he puzzled over it. I don't know if you read that bit, but he's like, why is it a perfect distribution? And why are these values not possible to, like, there's certain gaps where just the way the scoring goes can never happen, which is kind of funny. But then, this is just like rolling dice. Yeah, more sevens show up because there's more ways to get into the middle than it is to get to the edges. So that wasn't too surprising to me. But the detail he goes into to show why it is that way and the different structure of the way everything is created and the weightings. There's a really cool thing here where you can start messing with the weightings to see the way it would change the distribution graph. Like,
yeah, and if you look at all possible scores over, what is it, I think you took 2,500 of the scores and you just kind of mapped it out. But what's interesting is there's a huge bar at 5.9 and it drops at 6.0.
Oh yeah, I gotta find.
Which I thought was interesting because I remember going into StackRox and ACS all the time, and there's specific policies that you can change, right? So if it's higher than 6.0, it gets kind of bumped up. And
yeah.
so you're kind of like, well, if everything is 5.9, these could be serious ones that just don't get flagged, right?
Yeah, just because statistically that happens.
Yeah, and so you almost like, yeah, okay, you should have all these weightings, but it really should look a lot more like a normal distribution, right?
Yeah. I don't think that's the graph you're talking about, but
it's the one at the very top, which is the original. And then if you go down, it takes those original numbers and you can change the specific values.
Yeah, there, 5.9.
Like, yeah, you can change the values, the weighted values to see what the map would look like if you just, change the exploitability coefficient, for example, or
just that's a little better.
You go to exploitability at 15 and then everything's a 10. Right?
Everything's 10. Yep.
Yeah.
It's really cool. There's one other thing where the sarcasm. Given the CVSS scores were designed to resemble normal distribution, do the reported cases follow the normal distribution? No.
Yeah.
It's like all these everything seems to fall like 7.5. Look how many 7.5s there are.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he starts going into that, like deep diving into, well, why am I getting so many 7.5s and 7.8s? And then he starts going, these are 47 different permutations will give you a 7.5. So it's just like, holy crap. Why do you see? I think we've commented on this whenever we get CVSS scores. It feels like you only get 4. It's 7.5 and 9.8. Like the ones he's found, I'm like, oh yeah, these are the ones we always get.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, and we're only halfway through. So we could spend all day on this. It's really quite fascinating how involved the CVSS score was, because we've done the calculator on the show before, and I'm like, look, you click, and you get a score. Like, oh no, there's all sorts of stuff going on in the background. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have dug into that hardcore. What's the last one in the general news? Was a new APT. That is it. A new advanced persistent threat.
This apparently is a group. APT or the APT 42 report was talking about a new hacker group that's popped up.
It is. And by the way, I chose the Mandiant article on this for a little bit of later foreshadowing.
Nice.
The money shot. So yeah, the APT 42 report, they are spearfishing out of, I can't remember where they are now. Is it India? Iran. That's it. Yeah, out of Iran.
Yeah, Iranian state-sponsored group too.
Yeah, I think APTs are they typically sponsored? I don't know, but they got a little logo. Look at that, must be so proud. I guess you would be, wouldn't you? If you're like a hacker group that's state sponsored, and then the world goes, you are now, pardon me, APT 42. They'd all be going, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to put a label on yourself if you want to be doing hacker things, but
yeah.
I guess if you want to feel like Robin Hood, sure.
I don't know. I mean, it does mean that people are onto you.
Well, yeah, and yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just being silly. Right.
Potential ties and ransomware activity. And by the way, in that report, so this is Microsoft, Fortinet, a lot of the big companies came together and sort of said, hey, we've seen similar activity coming from the same area. And that's, I think, how they found it all. So it is pretty interesting that these companies actually will share information like this.
It is.
Kind of cool.
It's cool.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now we, the crazy stuff. There's pretty funny.
There's two kind of really funny ones here. Yeah.
Yes, two funny ones. The chess one is perfect, I think. But anyways, I think we have a different one first.
The controversy first. Emily Freeman, author of I think it's DevOps for Dummies book, and I think she did the keynote at one of our conferences earlier in the year, and then just comes straight out and rocks the world with, I've been saying now that devs don't want to deal with operation concerns, and I get pushback. Dozens of consulting calls I've been on about how to pull ops responsibility off the devs while still somehow being DevOps. Mm-hmm. There's so off the back of this tweet, I have seen so many articles get written saying devs hate ops and referencing her tweet. And I was like, well, screw those articles. Let's go directly to the tweet and then some of the comments that go below, which are always better than the tweet themselves. Somebody just saying capitalism, a preference to be able to master a specific craft of programming rather than be a jack of all trades, because they're only getting half attention. Exactly. It's like she wrote the DevOps book. It's like, it's very funny that she's come out and said dev don't like doing ops, and everyone's just. Then this guy, how did they get them to do ops responsibilities in the first place? Like, it's DevOps, darn it! Don't you ever question it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a conference. I don't know. Did you go through any of these? Because some of them are like.
I did. I see Maddie's in there too.
Yeah.
I think I think there's a couple of things pulling at this conversation. One, people are trying to sell developer tools. So that's going to be their strategy for what they want to yell at. Two, a lot of people don't actually want to define what the responsibilities are, right? So you go down and it's like, oh, devs shove their stuff in a Docker container and claim it's production ready, but they don't actually follow up. And I guess my point is like, that's just the lazy dev. If I'm handing off to operations, I should have to say like, I need this port, I need this for my application to run. You can't have dependencies in your application and not convey them in some meaningful way to operations, right? Whether or not that's through a tool or through some sort of YAML, declarative file, whatever it is, anyways, I think that's just a very lazy take on what developers do. I think the bigger companies, especially getting away from smaller ones, like we have CI engineers specifically at Red Hat, right? That work with the developers and in fact, some of our previous developers at StackRock have slightly moved over into more of a CI specific role, right? Where they're doing all the checks, they're doing the implementation, they're doing the testing. Anyways, and we actually architected a lot of our teams to help that. So it's just kind of like, I think it's just all definitional arguments, honestly, about who's responsible for what.
And perhaps people just not having a clue what DevOps actually means.
Yeah.
And going, oh, great, we can get the devs to do the ops now? Sweet.
And yeah, like operations can pick up more of the dev stuff. It's about the connection between the two. If you have that much friction where the devs just chuck a container at operations and say, here, go run this, that's not DevOps, right?
No.
DevOps isn't just having a GitLab like automated build or something like that.
Oh, yeah, it is. I'm DevOps.
Yeah. We automated our security checks. That's DevSecOps.
Wow. Oh, my God. All right. Then the second one. And this came from my wife, actually. She's like, you've got to put this on the show.
Do you follow chess? World.
I'm not. This kind of chess I do. Anal bead related chess, I guess. But no, why? Do you?
Yeah, so I follow this from like the day that it came out when Neiman beat Carlsen, because Carlsen's #1 in the world. Neiman's 200 points lower than him, so the chances of somebody who's 200 points lower beating Magnus is like 1%.
Right, it's impossible.
It's like, because it's a logarithmic scale too, right? So it's very, very rare that he did it, and he did it with the black pieces. So he did it on defense against the world champion that basically everybody freaked the hell out about.
Yeah.
And so then Magnus, I think he played one more game and then he just withdrew from the tournament. He's never withdrawn from a single tournament in his life. People were kind of, what's going on? There's a bunch of criticism typically when they win, they go and do interviews after. And so he said he prepared for the line, but it was like a new line that had never been played. Anyways, so there's some inconsistencies, and people are theorizing how he would have been able to cheat because they go through an X-ray scanner and things like that. Or not an X-ray, they get like a metal detector. Yeah, there's like some anti-cheat things that come out, but the theory is vibrating anal beads to tell the person what move it would be. That's the theory.
So and the theory is that somewhere somebody else is just programming the moves into an AI, and so Carlsen's actually playing against a computer.
Correct, and it's not programming. It would just be, you can look at lines, and so all of a sudden somebody just behind has to like make the move, and then it will tell you like what the computer thinks is the next best move.
Right.
And it was just weird because Neiman had like almost zero inconsistencies. He played almost pretty much a perfect game against the line that he really had never prepared for. So typically, if somebody is playing a line, they'll have some sort of slight, maybe not blunders, but you won't have like the best move available to you, and he didn't. So it was
It's amazing.
Either it was a great game, or we're going to see some funnier articles come out in the future.
But it's awesome though. That's like people's imagination just goes straight to AI-powered anal beads. That's got to be it for this to happen.
Well, honestly, if I was actually to make this plausible, I think it would probably be some sort of what's the word for it? Like the buzzer, the way we used to communicate, where it was vibration.
Oh, like Morse code.
Morse code, thank you. And all you need to do is just do like B5, right? C6.
It would be easy. Yeah.
And that would tell you like what the move is.
Yeah. And like, why is he smiling all the way through this? Right, just a little bit of Elon Musk up there. I just noticed, by the way, as I was scrolling past, what the hell is this other article over here? Lorry full of dildos and lubes. What?
Yeah, that was in Oklahoma yesterday. A lorry crashed or something like that. And
is that real? It was good.
Yeah, and it was a live news feed, and so they're zooming in. They're like, "We're trying to figure out what is it crashed out there," and you can just see it all. And they pretended like they didn't know what was crashed on the highway.
That's hilarious. So the key, anyway, my key takeaway from this was that next time I'm doing the CKS exam, I gotta find those beads, because they pretty much strip search you and check your whole room before you do any of those CNCF exams.
You can't have one of these touchpads. They think you're gonna chew with it. So
nope. But who knows? They can't check your butt. So
yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna go spend some money now. We got a lot to do.
Okay, Google. This is the foreshadowing. Google has closed the deal on Mandiant for a whopping $5.4 billion.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, this comes on the heels of that government announcement. So I think if Google is going to continuously push Anthos, try to make some movements into, let's say, detached environments, things of that sort, then they're going to need a good security provider to help out. So.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. I think when we started doing the show, like there was a lot. We occasionally talk about how the cloud providers are there, but they don't really have a security play. Like they have securability, but they haven't gone in and bought anything.
Yeah, and it's always kind of just been checkbox features, things.
Yeah,
this for people to be like, oh, okay, like we're doing just enough to take care of it, right? Maybe some vulnerability management, but this is a huge purchase. I mean, this is huge. Yeah,
pretty cool. And what else we got? And then it was quiet like a couple of weeks ago. We thought, because of the economic downturn, there'd been no money flying around. But then you would take a week off, and Simulate snapped up 17 million cybersecurity teams to stress test their networks with attack simulations. Pretty awesome. I don't really know them. Do you know them? I don't really know them.
I don't. I do think that there's a hole in the market for microservices and things like that in terms of testing, right? Like typically it's always perimeter testing. Like there's a little bit more functionality internally that's going to get tested with some of these new purchases. But 70 million.
Pretty cool. No surprise they're out of Tel Aviv. What a shock.
Yeah.
Our friends at Isovalent have raised their Series B 40 million. Cilium eBPF transform cloud native service connectivity and security. I like Isovalent. I think they're doing really well, and it's cool to see 40 million. I don't know.
Microsoft and Grafana Labs are lead investor in backing the creators of Cilium, which, again, I always find interesting how this money gets thrown around.
It's crazy, and it's funny you were mentioning Microsoft and Grafana. You get to the end of that sentence that's down there, and it's like, who wrote this? Cilium, the de facto standard for secure and scalable Kubernetes connectivity. Really, is it? I mean, it's popular. I wouldn't have thrown de facto at it, but
yeah, what is it always? Cool. We're the first. We're the de facto standard. I'm trying to think of the other buzzwords that are used in marketing. Cilium has come up a lot in conversations lately. Even things internally, people want to swap their CNIs. Sometimes they like defaults. Sometimes they want to bring their own in. But good for them.
It's a good de facto, if that is in fact what it is.
Yeah, and their talk at KubeCon EU, I remember you mentioning it, right? Some of the new security features that they brought in.
Yeah,
which is only going to get better.
They are going to slowly but surely rock the world. So I'm looking forward to see what happens.
What is their UI called again? Is it Telescope or Hubble?
Hubble. Yeah. It's a telescope.
I knew it was something like that. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. One more, I think, or two more. Heavy bit, 18 million. Now I like this one because this is a capital to raise capital. Like it's like a fund to back developer tools. So this isn't like Heavybit doesn't have the money. They've created a fund that allow them to then invest into people making developer tools. So that's why I think when I added it, I was like, it's a fund to get funding, or I guess it's I don't know. It's interesting because it means that I think maybe smaller companies can get money, I guess is what I'm gathering from it. I don't really know if you had a separate takeaway, but how to advise developer tool companies. So I like it. Sounds pretty cool. It's probably out of Tel Aviv again. I haven't checked that.
It is very interesting. There's a bunch of VC funds and stuff like that that do something similar, right? Like, yeah, they're, even if you are, was it stage A or something like that, and you get a little bit of amount, well, you probably still only have like 12 employees, 16 employees. You're not going to have all the marketing and business expertise. So you get these big funds that come in, help out that way.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And I know there was a mention of of one of the guys' histories. So helping the fund sneak and launch darkly. So certainly, which are very developery. So some good news there. And then the last one in the money information section, Ondat, and our former colleague Richard is now the CEO. What happened there? He was like CRO. He was kind of parachuted in to make good things happen at Storage OS. They did the rebrand Ondat, taking container native storage to the edge. I don't know if that's a rebrand. Container native storage. I think that's part of the rebranding, remarketing, because I've never heard that phrase before.
Yeah, I think people don't like to say Kubernetes native anymore. I'm hearing container native is the way to go. So kind of makes sense. You want it basically storage as a service, especially at the edge. A lot of the, let's say, storage applications are pretty heavy. So pretty cool.
Yeah,
congrats.
Cool. They've even made it into an acronym, CNS, container native storage. Must be real. Yeah. Congrats to Richard and good luck to Ondat.
And I think we got a CVE, a couple of vulnerabilities.
Yeah, let's get in it. Get into it.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
Okay, it's not really a CVE though.
Yeah.
Some cheating. It's just a bit of abuse. But I love the title.
Oh yeah, it's great. And you did a tool time, I want to say about a month ago, specifically about abusing GitHub runners. So
I did a super fast version of a talk that this is the one I'm doing at I think it's SecureCon. I'm going through, but I'm actually doing more than what he's done here. But I was like, first it starts off with abusing self-hosted GitHub runners at Facebook, and he goes through his timeline just to, I guess, cover his own backside to say, look, I did all this. I reached out, respond. But then he kind of gets into the detail. And what resonated for me is he's got a screen capture. I have this exact same screen capture in my presentation because this is a default setting for workflows from outside collaborators. You only have to do one thing. If you don't touch your repo, you only have to change the README. And then the next thing you can do is send in a workflow that will probably run. So once you've worked that out, and he's obviously worked that out, and he did some like searching, some deep searching to figure out where he could do it. And then it just goes through. Here's what I did. Run this, do that. And he actually goes into a lot more detail than... Ooh, that's cool. But he's done exactly the same thing. He's basically describing the route, and then he ends up with the PyTorch team and talking about how he did it. So go read that, or even better, come to my talk at SecureCon, and you'll see somebody like do this but worse live. Yay!
This but worse live.
Yeah.
Nice shout out. All right. Well, you're taking over tool time this week. Should we get into it?
I have an intro tool time, which isn't the thing. I think we should do it later, and then I'll get into my demo. Let's go.
Done.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Wow, straight bam in. I just wanted to highlight this because I didn't know where it should be. It's a tool, so I stuck at the beginning of tool time. Faux pilot, like Copilot.
Mhm.
It's like an on-prem Copilot. So you can deploy it, and it goes through all the different. It allows you. I guess if you're on-prem and you want what Copilot does, and you have a massive amount of code,
Oh, I see what
you
you mean.
can deploy a version of Copilot, but it will only draw trend from your own code using a very similar method.
Okay.
And you have the power of Copilot, but you don't have to be totally public. And I just thought it looks like the undertaking to create it looks like a big deal. Like, I don't know if people are going to use it, but it goes through how to install and all the different elements of it, and then how to create the Copilot plugin, just like I do. I still use Copilot.
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the coolest things is this the plugin for the local server too, right? So if you had your own server, you just set it up, put the VS Code extension in there, and
Yeah,
use
it's
all your
really
own
cool.
code. You just better hope that your code's pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. It's a little bit of a pat on your own back, isn't it?
Yeah,
Our
it's
code's
just
so
giving you
awesome.
crappy recommendations. It's like, this is you, buddy.
Yep. Very funny. Okay. All right. Should I move on?
Yeah. So we talked about Lazytrivy, I think, last week, and you
Yes.
figured that you would do a demo for us. What'd you find? Because I got pinged from you over the week about it.
A lot.
What happened? Yeah.
So I'll tell you right away, I gave up on running it on the Mac. I mean, so you go through, let's do a summary of it first. So Trivy is command line scanner for containers file systems. Actually, they added, I think they basically took advantage of the embedded TFSec now. By the way, this is the TFSec guy, Owen Rumney. So
Okay.
I didn't know that. There's no coincidence that, and he works at Aqua Security. I also did not know he was, of course he does, because he's part of the TFSec thing.
Mhm.
So, and you can scan remote AWS now and look for misconfigs via the TFSec in there. So this is all really cool. And so he sought out to make the super easy version based on the other lazy things here. And it looked easy. So I thought, all right, I'm going to go through and, this is new. So this wasn't here. So I started trying to get it to work, and like nothing freaking worked. Right.
Mhm.
And I went to Anais Ulrich's video. She released one called Lazytrivy, and I can't believe she actually released the video, because she goes, here it is, and she tries to run it and it didn't work, and she went, oh, okay, that's the end of the video. And so I learned absolutely nothing from her video. So I actually tweeted Owen, DM'd him and said, hey, I just tried this on Mac, like it didn't work, and so then I went to a VM on GCP and it worked better, but I'm still having all sorts of issues.
Okay.
And at the time, let's go to releases, because this is great. We were on this 4 days ago, and that was when I thought, I'll just knock this, out.
Mhm.
And then he's like, oh, what doesn't work? Bing, 4.1, bing, 4.2, bing. This is yesterday, so I had
Change
tons of
Docker, Mr.
conversations.
President. Yeah.
Yeah, these are fits lots of issues. It was like bam, bam, bang, 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 and there's like 5, then there's 6, and 1. And then I pinged him today and said, like, I'm gonna do it on the show. He's been awesome. Like,
Yeah.
he's been responding on Twitter. Like every time I send him something, he's like, really? Goes and tries it. Okay, new version.
That's pretty cool.
And so this was last night, and so I haven't even tried 061 yet. I was on 053 at the big, like 15 minutes before we started this.
Okay.
And he also noticing that, because there's a Darwin build, but he's pointed out and added this, which wasn't here before. Docker desktop has degraded functionality. Local built images in repository cannot be scanned, which is basically the basics. Like you want to do, He had all sorts of issues. I tried Rancher Desktop. I tried Docker Desktop just to see if it could access the Docker socket to make the scans happen, and it just flat out couldn't do it. So even though it says it works for Mac, and there is a build for Mac, it didn't really work. And last message I had from him saying was he didn't have a Mac. He's got like a PC, he's got Linux. So he's borrowed a Mac now to try and
testing.
Try and do Mac testing for it, because he was like, he just thought it would work, and it turned out it didn't. So where is it living? We're there. All right, cool. So let me just quit this so you can actually see how many versions I've got. There's 3, 4, 4, 1, 5, 5. As I was plowing away at this thing, I'll make it bigger. There is a couple little nuances too, which I'm okay. Oh, something I haven't told them yet. If you're watching this, Owen, you don't know this. If you have it always shows the whole name of the container, and sometimes some of the AWS weird ones are crazy long names. So on another system, I had an AWS one that put the name like this divide here. Yeah, it just was smashed all the way to the edge, so you couldn't see anything. So it didn't work. There's an assumption being made that these names will be reasonable. So I've just started this up on the host, and you can just hit enter, and you see like the blue on blue is not particularly well visible, but just says scanning image Nginx 117. I have there, bang. So that works. And I thought that's pretty cool. And now it automatically moves focus over to here. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, you can tap it and go back, and you can roll through and read all the stuff about it. I think it's like, it reminds me of like a MS-DOS Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy video game or something. It's like where they used to actually make software that did things like this for terminal. And I thought this is really very clever. What also I noticed is that there's a lot of critical vulnerabilities in Nginx.
Yeah, that's 1.17. What version are they on now?
Yeah. Oh, way past that. I did that intentionally. So you can do that, and you can go over, and sometimes it's hard to see like where your focus is, because you can see how subtle the change of green color is to know whether I'm here or whether I'm here.
Yeah,
it's a little difficult. There was a bug also that if you had more images than could be displayed, and it went off the screen, when you picked an image, a different image would scan. So there was like an indexing issue, and he fixed that instantly. So yay. So if you've used this, that's the underlying message. Just kicked my guitar over, I think. If you have an issue with Lazytrivy, do not be afraid to DM Owen on Twitter. He is laser response, maybe not on the weekend. And it works pretty well. So you can see, hit it, simple logger 01, bam, and it's running Trivy containerized, I think, in the background, because when I popped up my Docker desktop, the one that didn't work, I could see that the Trivy container would come up and then go away, and you could see it was trying, and it pulls this all out of your local. It's like Docker images list. It does that, and that's what you got. There was some issues with it was ignoring latest tags and things like that, but it's all kind of fixed. And then you can do images you don't have yet. So let's say
that's cool.
Nginx
1.18. Yeah,
2.9. Let's be generous.
1.21 is the stable one they have running right now.
Oh, I could do that.
I just looked up.
There, see, I got an error scanning image. I had some issues with trying to do this before, and it worked. Let me just try one more time. What was the 1.2.1?
Yeah, stable right now is 1.20.1. Oh, wait, no, this is an old one, but
let's see if that even works. Are we?
Yeah.
I'm still occasionally getting some issues with it. What's funny is the version I had yesterday, that actually worked. Remote scanning was absolutely fine. It all came up, and I don't know why it isn't working today. So it has, I guess, its nuances. Let's
try 1.23.
Well, I mean, it didn't scan anything, so let's 1.23.
The only thing I can think of as to why it's saying that is you might need to do like docker.io. So for example, like K8s.gcr.io works.
Oh yeah, I think in the demo it didn't, but so is it like /nginx? You mean like full registry path?
Yeah.
Did you do that?
Hold on.
Let's just see. Maybe it will, right? You never know. Yeah, it still says error. It's got its funny things. It does switch modes as well if you hit, let's do that. So if you want to do AWS or file system, you hit W and then you can flip around. I had some issues with file system as well. Actually, this is probably a bad because this is going to try and scan my root. So let's kick out of here and go into code, go into log. That should have problems on it. And then you can go // Lazytrivy and switch.
What about nginx ... stable or semicolon stable? Colon
I'll
stable.
try that in 2 seconds. Let's see. So it's now you can see scanning file system root code log4j POC, which is in theory it says the right thing and it says it's doing it. I think yesterday he pinged me and said he figured out why it wasn't working, and I have a POM file in there that I think Trivy should handle that has problems. But I would do this and I would leave it and it would just never come back. So I guess in a way I did ask Owen and say, hey, do you want to see it not work? Well, set up a call, but I'm like, well, here, Owen, you can see this not work. So there were issues and different. He confirmed it working on PC because he's got a PC. So if you have a PC and you want to use it, bro, I think it does work with the Docker desktop on that space probably. And certain Linux operating systems obviously works, but apparently there are issues on this GCP VM that I'm using. I don't know why there would be though, because it's pretty stock Linux, right? And it has Docker running on it. I don't quite get it. But this never ends, so I'm not going to just leave you wondering what happened. You can terminate. I don't have an AWS set up to do this. But so far, actually, his words on this when I asked him about it were maybe a capital M on the minimum viable product phase of Lazytrivy. He's like, they're working on it. But I think if you just use, if you want to use Lazytrivy for what you do, like scan images or what most people I think use it for, it's fine. It works and it scans stuff and it's easy and simple. By the way, speaking of which, what was the one you wanted me to pull? Nginx
1.23.
1.23. So if I do that, it'll successfully pull it, right? And then I rerun Lazytrivy and it'll be there and I can scan it. I'm just curious to see how bad it is. And I would have thought, oh, what if I did that?
Yeah, that's what.
All right, let's try that from inside the app.
You can do the same thing with 1.22 if it's.
Yeah, I'll do 1.22 next to see if that kind of a path makes it work better. Because I haven't scanned the latest Nginx in ages. Nginx used to be one when I was at Aqua for sure. We always use it because it's so easy to go back versions and find just tons and tons of problems. And look at that, like this is latest and greatest, and it still has 2 criticals. But I imagine it's people pick on it. There's too many like dependencies. You ever see the Nginx dependency graph?
Yeah,
it's massive. So
yeah, the other I find it funny. I keep on getting ads for I forget what the website is, but they do comparisons of security tools. And Nginx pops up. It's like it'll be like Nginx, Aqua, like, the top 6 there. And I'm like, what's going on? Probably just the only people that'll greenlit the use of the logo.
Yeah, good point. Hey, worked.
Nice.
Full path. Remote scanning works if you remember the actual full registry path works just fine. So it doesn't just assume. Oh, that's cool. Nice one.
Which I actually think is probably good because you should have the complete path. I don't want you don't want somebody going and pulling a container onto your host.
No,
right?
that makes a lot of sense. So if I do this, there's a way to refresh the image. Refresh is, I guess that's an I. So if I tip I now, does it show? I just didn't know if it was going to pull, if it was in my local registry or whether it got it and got rid of it and now it's not there. And I kind of like the fact that it's not there because I don't want it bloating my local registry. Neat. Hey, we cracked it. That's how it works on Linux. You're just going to have the full path.
Yeah, it's great work, and honestly, it's pretty impressive how responsive. Not many people respond to Twitter DMs like that.
No, he was absolutely amazing. So
very cool.
There we go. Onward and upward. I imagine I'll blink. There's probably another version out while we've been talking, or probably maybe a change to the README to say, hey, actually, to do your remote look like with a full path if you're on
Yeah,
certain
and no
Linux.
kidding. Oh, and take some time off. Enjoy the weekend.
Yeah, just chill, man. Chill.
Yeah.
You've been a superstar.
Mhm.
So there we go. Lazytrivy. You're super easy to use now that we have as a team over the last 2 days blown through 20 new versions, so that it's working even better. So and then hopefully like the file system stuff would be good. Like if you look at the demo of the file system on his system, which is there's a little animated GIF on the screen. It actually shows you like a little blue file system, and you can navigate through, click on like a palm, and bump, it comes up. Like I want it to work because it actually looks pretty sick. Like when you see what it does and how it presents the tree of your file system and how you can navigate it and find vulnerabilities. It looks great. So maybe we'll come back at some other point. Otherwise, I still think it rocks.
Nice. Other than that, we'll see not the same time next week, Friday next week, right?
Yes, hopefully, yes. Friday next week, we will be back at our
Mhm.
normal time.
Usual time, no delays. Thank you, Air Canada. I appreciate you canceling on me 4 hours before my flight. Other than that, we'll see you next week on Friday. I'm Mike Foster.
I'm Steve Jaguar.
Take care.